Vino Veritas. What do you think is the most pressing problem facing this country today? I mean, we've got Islamic terrorists, we've got communist, Marxist in the White House, but there's so many other issues that face this country. What do you think we really need to pay attention to?
That's a good question. Probably the way you put it, not something, I guess, someone would particularly run on, not a political issue. It probably is the schools. As we've seen a little bit, as I was talking to some of you about this Texas textbook fight, you know, they're going crazy in the New York Times and in the Nation magazine, if you happen to read the Nation magazine, as I do, by things like, I mean, one example I was giving was that the Texas you know, these right-wing crazy religious fanatics are insisting that in addition to mentioning Joe McCarthy, you mentioned the Venona Papers, in which it turned out hundreds upon hundreds of communists were working for the United States government. Well, the Venona Papers came out in, what, it was like 1994, and that still hasn't made its way into US textbooks. So they're just reading about this lunatic Joe McCarthy without mentioning that there was a single communist in government. That's what the textbooks were saying. And I mean, look at the voting patterns. I can't tell you how many people I have met who told me they were out protesting my college speech, and 2 years later, once they graduated, they became my biggest fan. There was one guy, he was such a fan, he showed up at a Los Angeles radio station I was doing, and he told me the first time he had heard of me, he was standing outside one of my speeches at, I don't know, Berkeley or something, with a bullhorn denouncing me, and then he thought, well, maybe he'd read one of my books, and he graduated, read one of the books, and started reading all of them and became a patriotic American. Well, you know, surprisingly enough, after 18 years of Chinese-style brainwashing, 18 to 25-year-olds aren't our most civic-minded individuals. You know, they don't know about American history. They don't know about Ben Franklin. They know about the founding of now. That apparently was something that has been in all textbooks, that those crazy fundamentalists in Texas rewriting the textbooks thought maybe might not be as important as, oh, I don't know, Paul Revere's Ride, the founding of now. So, you know, this is why Christie's fight in New Jersey and fights that Americans are having all over are so important. Who is writing the textbooks now? Bill Ayers is. And it's really a huge problem. There's this documentary I just saw mentioned on Fox News called The Lottery. It's about all of these kids, mostly from underprivileged background in New York, trying to get into a charter school. I think it's called the Harlem Charter School. And these kids from there are something like 10,000 parents trying to get their parents into, you know, 200-person slot there. And the kids coming from the exact same neighborhoods, don't tell me that's what it is. They can't throw them out. They're not picking and choosing what the smart ones are. It's not based on IQ. It's based on nothing but a lottery. And at that charter school, which I think is called the Harlem School, their reading level is the highest in the state. In the state of New York. This is the liberal plot, to keep poor people down, to keep them voting Democrat, to keep them stupid and ignorant. And the schools, that would change everything. Everything.
I think it was reported on Friday in Fox News that last Wednesday, the president's top advisor on counterterrorism, Brennan, said in a speech that jihadists, we shouldn't use that term, that they were actually victims of social and political forces. Talk just for a moment about the rise of radical Islam and its threat to our country and our president's relationship with perhaps the Muslim community.
I think it's not so much his relationship with the Muslim community, it's his relationship with the liberal community. And the liberal community cannot defend the United States of America, will not defend the United States of America. And the fact that they are making excuses about, oh, really, it's not Islam, it's his background. Well, you know, first of all, just, you know, on the facts of the case, Osama bin Laden is a billionaire. The car bomber was this one just a month ago in New York. He had degrees. He was given citizenship in America. He had a wife. He had a child. You know, the more the mainstream media kept describing how normal he was and what a regular guy he was and look at how high achieving he was, the more you keep coming back to the point, oh, it must be Islam. Thanks for clarifying that, mainstream media. Thanks for making that crystal clear, New York Times. But you know, beyond that, and Muhammad Atta, he had an engineering degree from some fancy German school. This is not the liberal myth of poverty causing terrorism. No, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that Islam causes terrorism. And as for, oh, boo-hoo-hoo, his background, this is how he was brought up, I'm always reminded of a story of British colonialists in India. And you know, you have the British colonel there, and he's observing as a man has died, and at the funeral, they're all gathered around, and they're about to throw the widow on top of her husband's funeral pyre. And he moves in to stop it, and one of the Indians says to him, no, no, you have to understand, this is just our custom. And the British colonel says, no, that's fine, you can follow your customs, but I want to tell you about one of my customs. You can throw her in the funeral pyre, but the moment you do that, anyone involved is going to be hung from those trees right there. Sorry, it's just a little British custom we have. And I think that has to be our approach with the terrorists. Fine, you have your customs blowing stuff up and killing civilians. We have our customs of, first of all, trying to stop you from doing that. And, oh, I don't know, maybe not making you a citizen. Can we get the name? Can we get the name of the person? We had, what, a 2-year investigation to find out who released Valerie Plame's name? Who cares? She wasn't a covert agent. She was a paper pusher at the CIA, and not a particularly good paper pusher. We spent 2 years investigating that. Can we get the name of the person who granted the car bomber United States citizenship? People around the world would do anything for United States citizenship, and we're taking some illiterate Pakistani who's getting D's at a community college? Yeah, fast track him. I don't know, how about some Swiss engineers? So, you know, that's step one, preventing them from coming here and punishing them when they act. But that is not part of this administration, and it isn't, and as I say, it's Obama's liberalism. How do you explain Posner at the State Department going to China and apologizing for Arizona's immigration law? These are people who don't particularly like America, and therefore they're not very good at defending it. But they talk a good game when they're running for office.